Hi, my name is Kristen Saunders-Denton. This is my Week 3 assignment, a critique of my Week 2 memorable speech and two other classmates' Week 2 memorable speech. This is Kristen Saunders' critique of Jerry Harris and Charles Robertson. On my Week 2 memorable speech, the strong points that I noticed about my speech were how I minimized disturbances in the background by having a simple area where I recorded so that the audience could focus on the speaker. To me, my ideas were well organized. I stayed focused on a main point, and I managed to bridge my story well throughout. I made emphasis on words which caused the story to have a different meaning when you emphasize different words. I incorporated visual aids and gestures in order to grasp and hold the audience's attention. Where I thought I could use improvement was how I would pause too long at times during my speech and failed to jump right back and flow into the speech. And I also failed to hold eye contact with my audience at times. Next, Jerry Harris. To me, his strong points were how his story was well organized and he did have a main focus. His story started strong, it had a strong climax, and it had a strong ending. His ideas were well organized. He bridged his story well throughout, and he kept good eye contact with his audience. The areas where I felt he could use improvement was he had too many visual aids, visual disturbances in the background. I found myself at times during his story focusing more on what was in the background than the speaker himself. His glasses had a disturbing glare, and they also reflected the background images. This will make the audience focus more on the disturbances in the speaker again. Also, he failed to vary his vocal pace, tone, and volume. He was just too monotone throughout his whole speech. To me, he could have used more gestures and added emphasis to certain words, and this would have helped to vary the pace and tone of his story. Okay, next, Mr. Charles Robertson. To me, his strong points was that he did manage to hold the audience attention by minimizing the visual disturbances in the background. He was in a well-lit area that was just showing him. There was nothing there. So we could focus on him. And he did manage to keep good eye contact throughout his speech. The areas where I felt he could use improvement was that his ideas were not well organized and his story just didn't flow to me. I had to strain to focus on the main idea of the story. He had no emotion. He didn't vary his pace, tone, and volume. He just didn't have a strong start to me. He struggled throughout his speech to try to hold the audience attention. There were points in his story also where he could have made more emphasis and used gestures and or visual aids to grasp and hold the audience attention. And one last thing I felt he could improve on, he should have stayed focused on one story and one main point. He tried to incorporate two memorable moments. To me, just adding that additional story midstream was very ineffective. To me, he should have just stuck with one story and made that a stronger story with more detail, visual aids and gestures, And just to me, overall, his story wasn't well organized, and it lacked feeling and interest. Um, Losing your front teeth could have really been a great story if it had just been delivered differently. Thank you. This concludes my critiques.